Hello, KFC SuperCoaches, and welcome to a special gather-around edition of KFC SuperCoach Live TV. It's round 5. It's gather-around here in Adelaide. This, of course, is the Phantom speaking. I've turfed our pattern, given it's all about Adelaide this week, and it's a big day in KFC SuperCoach on Thursday as well. The Crows and the Blues kick off the inaugural gather-around tonight. And obviously big KFC SuperCoach ramifications. What do you do, Sam Dougherty? Are you going to Jordan Dawson? Some big VC and C options in tonight's fixture too. So plenty of talk about, plenty of immediate stuff to discuss. I'm joined by rookie man and KFC SuperCoach expert Dan Batten. Dan, welcome.
Good to be here. I'm surprised you haven't gone into hiding as well, Phantom, like Al and Tim. Their rankings are fairly down south, and I was just scrolling through and I was trying to find yours and I actually couldn't find it. So hopefully you can fly up a little bit more, but I'm going to be very nervous watching tonight. No Jordan Dawson, and just, tore it apart last week, and he could go big again. Went huge twice last year against the Blues, but yeah, so it's going to be a pretty tough watch. I may end up at the bottom close to you, I reckon, after this week.
Yep, you'll be at the bottom soon enough, Dan. Long year, you've learnt that in the past. Of course, we've a big round, big special edition. We've got the big gun back on, the people's champion, the people's GOAT, Dan Magala, the SuperCoach investor. Welcome.
Thanks, gents. Thanks for having me. And what an exciting week you've got installed for you up in Adelaide, fans. It's going to be a really great time for the football purists out there. It'd have to be one of the best things to participate in if you get the chance. And hopefully one day they bring something like that to Melbourne or rural Victoria or somewhere like that, easy to get to if you've got a kid. So excited about tonight, hoping the Blues continue to be undefeated. And I'm hoping that someone puts some attention into Jordan Smokey Dawson tonight. I think he set the world alight on the weekend and showed that tagging Laird is probably not the move to stop Adelaide. I think a more astute coach might go after Dawson this week. And I think Ed Curnow or someone else might pay some homage to Jordan tonight.
Well, maybe we saw last week the second centre bounce man for the Crows in the midfield, but then he was also took the equal most kickouts again for the Crows. So if Kerner does go to him, does he push back? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but quickly we'll go with what Bryce has got here. No artwork. Where's the artwork, Regala?
It's just been shifted to another spot in the home. So I think because my wife's back at work now, she likes to move things around. And one of those nice pieces of art, I think it's a Nunzio piece that we got for our wedding. It's now been shifted to the front room. So it's in a very different, it's inconspicuous position actually. So it's the same wall, except the art's been, it's been seconded elsewhere. It's been traded out of my side. Yeah.
Wow. You really are one of the elites using
it's on seconded
and all these big words that I can't understand. What were you going to ask, Phantom?
A couple of rookie questions coming in to start with. We'll get straight to the people. Leave your questions below if you are listening. We'd love everyone to get involved. Jacob Van Ruin looks to be the only really downgrade option on the bubble this week. Firstly, do we need to bring him in? Is he a must? And like Geordie asked, is it too early to chop someone like Cam McKenzie?
Toss and turn whether it is a bit of a must this week, because there's no real rookies on the horizon. Obviously, we've got Samson Ryan, who's already gone up in price. You could have a pretty favourable role in the next few weeks as potentially as Richmond's number one ruck. But then, you look at even the guys who played one game. You've got Dylan Williams, who his job security is shaky at best, scored 60 points, but he's another forward rookie. So, and then with Jacob Van Ruin, I was thinking, obviously Gawn was meant to be sidelined for a few weeks. Now he's only 1 to 2. If he comes back in round 6, then, JVR has a poor one on the weekend, then he could be straight out. So, but I think I'm still going to downgrade someone for him. But at the same time, if you're not as confident and you've got guys like Fergus Green who are negative break even, others who have negative break even as well, even like Cade Chandler on your bench, then, you don't have to. But at the same time, just be wary that there's going to be the rookie options in the next few weeks are going to be few and far between. And even your man, Will Gould, all he had to do was get through training this week to play with both of their key backs out. And it looks like he's been ruled out as well.
He has, yes. He only needs just to stand there with a bit picked this week. We're going to do anything. The timing of that. But Shano asked as well about Alan Davey, Mateus Filippo. Guys, we're talking about the need to sort of be aggressive. We've spoken about on the show a lot this season, but like you just mentioned, we can't cut these guys. Otherwise, we're not going to have no money coming in. Dan McGarl, the KFC SuperCoach investor. What's your take on chopping this money early, given what we expect is not probably going to come?
I think it's a delicate balance that you have to maintain throughout the season. And I guess like Maroya's Magic's really good with this stuff. Selby out there. I feel like the circumstances this week, we're bereft of rookies. We've only had two real options, being Samson Ryan at 157k and Jacob Van Rooyen at roughly 123 basement bargain price. But I don't mind the idea of bringing Van Rooyen in this week because, I mean, he's got a negative BE of negative 71. He'll go up 50 grand just by coming out and scoring 50 odd. And that's better than some of the rookies we've had bubbling along for 4 to 5 weeks, like Comben and Alwyn Davey Jr., Wilmot, etc. So I'm really just going to take the punt, just get him in. I mean, I'm not going to over-engineer how difficult it is to pick them because I know the pipeline of rookies is looking pretty bare. But I'll also give a generous assumption that I do think some rookies will start to flow into the teams as the Anzac Day round, the shortened turnarounds for some. They'll start to bring some more blood into the side, and that could be good for us. And then you look at teams that might, round 5, 6, 7, be looking to inject some youth into the side because FY23 seems to be over. That could be the Gold Coast Suns. Hawthorn could continue to play more kids, Weddell, all those types of players if they're not injured. But I'm in the same boat as all you this week because I obviously have a Dockery injury. It's pretty disappointing and obviously unfortunate for him because of all the problems he's had with his knee.
Yeah.
But my preference is to get the number one defender, and in my opinion, that is probably Smokey Dawson. I mean, Dacos has had an amazing year. I've already got him, but I think the most attractive candidate is that, and closing out that position, then closing out Tim English, and I think I've got all the big dogs. But it's hard to get to him. Otherwise, I have to take a punt and get rid of someone like Fergus Green prematurely, and I don't really want to do that because his first half showed me that he's actually got quite a bit of talent and he might be able to score 70s for a 3-week stint. So I think it's horses for courses. If you are aggressively pursuing rankings, I'd forego 50 to 60 grand worth of Fergus Green upside to have like rolled gold Jordan Dawson points in my side. Like I would prefer to have Jordan Dawson over Jake Lloyd perhaps, because if I can only go Comben to JVR, perhaps I can only free up enough capital to get maybe Tom Stewart. Tom Stewart's coming off what was meant to be a 4-week knee, and is he playing injured? I'm not sure. He's got 173 on the back of that.
Yeah.
But that's the options I'm looking at. I'm thinking, do I burn Fergus? I lose maybe 50, 60 grand upside to acquire the best defender in the game. And I'm starting to lean towards that could be the option, but you never know. Fergus Green could kick 4 in a game and all of a sudden his price cycle moves and he doesn't go just 50, 60, maybe he adds 120. So you have to forecast their upside. And I don't see much upside for Comben. I don't see much upside for Wilmot. I don't see much upside for Constable. He's not been playing. And I think Philippou, McKenzie and those fellas, they're coming close to culling season. Their BEs are getting into the low positives. And unless they produce a game out of the box, it's probably time we move them on as well. Like you could see on the weekend, Geelong game, McKenzie just sort of got ragdolled in the conditions. The conditions weren't suitable to an 18-year-old player against a seasoned premiership winning side that boasts a midfield full of 200-plus gamers. So there's sorts of considerations I'm making. But again, horses for courses. I know you're thinking something a bit more off the track there, Phantom, about your 3 moves. But in my opinion, I'm weighing up whether to cull Fergus Green or cull Comben to get JVR to see whether I get to Dawson or not. So, and I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think Dawson's going to have 150 tonight. I think he's going to have between 90 and 110, and he'll be quelled if he gets too hot in third quarter or something like that.
Says the Carlton fan, Dan Batten there from Dan Begala. Let's talk a bit more about Sam Dougherty options. If you are there listening with Sam Dougherty, let us know what your trade is in the comments. Jono says Sam Dougherty to Jack Sinclair, who in round 3, I think, scored 63 points. Then the other 3 games have been tons. The number 1 KFC SuperCoach scorer in defence last year. Has a big break even, though, 154, 156, I believe it is. So still coming down. I'm going to get Dacos, one of the 35% of coaches that doesn't have Nick Dacos, and it's killed me the opening month, so I'll be going there. It's just whether I go for someone else too, like Dan mentioned, we spoke off air. You know, do you burn a Will Setterfield, burn a Jacob Hopper now to get a Tom Stewart as well? Break even of 69 for Tom Stewart, given that 18-point score in round 1 is now come out of his price cycle. So if I like Sinclair, Johnny, but maybe not yet. I'd probably prefer Tom Stewart price-wise. Wait a little bit longer for Jack Sinclair. If Dacos, Dawson, Stewart are probably the three in order I'd have. But I want to quickly ask you both. You're set on Jordan Dawson at that price. You're not going to take any second thoughts about going for Tom Stewart instead, Dan Bagala? You're happy to spend up on Jordan Dawson over Tom Stewart? I know you explain why you would do that, but you're happy he's the number one ahead of Tom Stewart from here?
I think there's two things that I rate about Dawson. It's obviously he wears the armband now at Adelaide. He's had some huge clutch moments in his 30 games he's played for that football club, including winning one after the Siren last year. But I like that he's been uninjured this year. Like last year, he rolled into the season with a calf complaint, I think, on the verge of the start of the season. And he started slow, but then fired up. And when he went on a rampage last year, when you were playing against him, it felt like a short squeeze. Like it was pretty much every week he'd punch out 130. He'd hit three-quarter time on 95 or 100 points. And you just can't avoid having players like that in your side. And then I conversely compare that back to Tom Stewart. Again, the injury he did in round one, they reiterated that it'd be a 4-week injury. And I just don't know whether he's got superhuman healing powers or he's playing under duress. Like, again, he backed it up with 173 against the Gold Coast Suns, who must have just been, I didn't watch the game, but they must have just been kicking it down his throat. I just think like it's just Dawson's on the verge of going to 650 plus. I feel like he's just had that one big score. His price wasn't that substantially impacted, and he could go on a bit of a run here where he pumps out a few in a row, and therefore he'll become unobtainable when he's worth 650, 660, 670k. So the upside to him also is he's going to be mid-defender, so there could be opportunities later in the year when a player like Laird, Clary, or somebody goes down, you can just side swap them to him and probably make a bit of capital at the same time. So I do know I'll get him. So maybe I'm starting to lean towards Stewart a little bit because I guess I don't have to remove Fergus Green from my side. I can just get rid of Comben, who I don't really think's got much upside left. And I can accept Stewart. I know Stewart has an uncapped ceiling. We've seen that Richmond game last year where he flattened Prestia. He went 180. And then on the weekend against Gold Coast, 170. But again, we're not in the game of chasing points. We're in the game of picking athletes or assets with great upside. And both Dawson and Stewart have fantastic upside. I just think that Dawson's circumstances as we speak are better than Stewart's, given he's coming off that knee, and there's a bit of uncertainty around the longevity of that knee, whether they rest him, whether they protect him, whether he doesn't play to his utmost capacity.
Yep, fair assessment there, Dan Batten. What do you think about Sam Dougherty replacement? Shane's mentioned one here, Sam Dougherty to Mason Redmond. Make some cash out of that. Who, like Sinclair, had one nightmare game a couple of weeks ago, gave away those few 50-metre penalties. 3 other tons, though, for him. So good price. First, what do you think about Redmond, and what would you lean towards if you had Doc?
Is that Tim Mitchell's burner there, Shane Scalera? Because surely Tim, obviously in the Gold Coast at the moment, but I'm sure he's probably watching. But I probably would look, if you're trading out Doc, you want the best, I think. And I think it's probably got to be one of Stewart or Dawson if you've got the cash. I mean, yeah, we were frustrated by Dockery and his role. I mean, Redmond's roles look pretty good, but he is splitting kick-ins with Ridley, and he can be up and down. And I think there's been some numbers put out that he does perform pretty poorly in losses, and there was a big sort of differential between his scores in wins and losses last year. And obviously Essendon have started really well, but I don't think it's going to continue. So, and Lloyd, that's an interesting suggestion as well. I mean, he's looked like he's sort of, almost back to what you used to expect from Jake Lloyd, a few tons and a 90, I think, so far this year. But again, he's sharing the kick-ins with Ollie Florent and another Swan as well, who's I think maybe in Braden Campbell. So I think they're sort of sharing around a bit. What was that?
Nick Blakey,
yeah, of course, yeah. So I mean, there's plenty of footy to go around there. Like too many mouths to feed, I think. So. Another guy who I mean, it looks like a decent option, Adam Sard. He started the year really well. Obviously, won at Dockery for 4 to 6 weeks. Did some numbers on him earlier in the week. He's actually averaged 108 points in his last 17 games. That's from round 10 last year. Only 3 scores under 100, but one of those scores was against the Crows when he was tagged by Ben Keys, who did a bit of a number on him, scored about 60, 70 points. So maybe almost be advised not to get him this week, considering Ben Keys could go to him again. But yeah, I think if you're trading Dougherty, it's probably got to be Tom Stewart or Jordan Dawson.
Adrian Butler mentions Nick Haynes here. Took, I think, career high team marks last week. We know what he can do behind the footy a couple of years ago. Obviously, Harry Himmelberg took over in that role last year. But SuperCoach ton for Haynes on the weekend and some consistent scoring below that. Good price, 400K or thereabouts. If you want to make some money, the question, I guess, is, are you going to need another trade to go up from him? Is he going to be in the top 6 to 8 conversation? One more on the defender replacements. Michael asked about Luke Ryan, who's gone big. We know he's up and down a little bit last year. Some news from our friend over in the West a couple of days ago. Jordan McArdle said that Luke Ryan looked pretty sore at training, heavily strapped as well. So one to watch for at Team Snot. They obviously play at Nord Oval on Friday afternoon. So just keep an eye on that if you are considering him. But let's move on. Harry's got a question here coming through. Will Setterfield is one I do want to discuss. Like I mentioned, I'm weighing up whether to move him on. He's made his 100K. His break even is now about 85, just about what he scored last week, 87, I think it was. So, Dan McGarr, do you think his money-making ways are over? I probably needs just one more big score to kickstart that again. But if a big gun is in sight, like an LDU here is with Harry, would you just take it?
Yeah, I don't mind it. LDU is currently ranked champion, the number one player in the comp. He's had 3 blinders and he's obviously missed the 3rd game late with a calf. But yeah, I think if you can make those moves, you've got to consider it. But I do think that Setterfield and those types are the least of our worries. There's probably bigger fires in our team to put out than Will Setterfield. In my opinion, I'm going to hold and keep him there for consistent scoring, because I know that worst case, he's going to bring effort, he's going to bring tackles, and he's going to bring 70 to 80 points per week. I think that's what he'll do, and they like him with plenty of centre bounce attendances. I do think on the weekend against the Suns, if that's who they were playing, they're playing at Marvel, I can't recall who they're playing, but I felt like they eased him into the game. Like there was probably 15 minutes or 10, 15 minutes at the start where he didn't even face into a centre bounce attendance. So I feel like he was clearly playing with a quad or clearly playing with an ailment and some wear and tear. And subsequently, I think that maybe against Melbourne, they're going to have to unleash him against Clary. Round 22 last year, Carlton nearly knocked him over. He sort of went head-to-head with Clary after half-time, and he smashed him. So I'd be interested to see if that's the situation they go with this week. Clary, most informed player in the comp. I'm going to hold Setters. If you can get to an LDU, though, where there's probably a 20, 30-point swing week on week. Let's just say Setters averages 90, LDU average 120. Well, the quicker you can get that plus 30 into your team, the better off you're going to be rankings-wise. So why not make the move? However, you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're going to have to play a rookie elsewhere, or you're going to have to take a haircut on something else, or miss the potential upside on Setterfield. But I think the week-on-week upside you get at LDU with Setters, you do it.
Setterfield pretty closely.
I think we just lost the Phantom.
Phantom's gone. I was wondering what was going on.
Just gathering around.
I thought that might have been
Dan Batten.
Yeah, everyone's taken the internet.
Watched Will Setterfield pretty closely last on.
Oh no.
We'll be in catch-up mode.
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. So, I mean, Setterfield, that's one move I've considered, Harry, going Setterfield straight to Luke Davies-Uniacke. I have just enough to get to him or potentially Tom Stewart, but I'm thinking I might just wait a week for potentially Marcus Bontempelli to go down. He's about 6'10". He's about 5-6K away from reach for me. But, yeah, so, I mean, LDU, he started the season really well, and it was looking like another 120 from him against the Blues until he sort of slowed down a bit. But I reckon is he an absolute top liner like a Bont Took? I think it still remains to be seen a bit with him. I mean, he's had some good form. He's also had a mistake game with an injury as well. So, yeah, I don't know. For me personally, in that situation, maybe not, especially as I'd have to burn a boost to do it. But, I mean, more aggressive coaches than me would certainly take the punt. So, I mean, if you're not burning a boost, I reckon it's definitely a trade option.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have that sort of cash available right now at this point in the season, 200 grand, I think it is to get there.
Yeah.
150 grand. I think it's a move you should definitely consider because LDU, I mean, he's firing, and I think you've got to get those blokes inside. I see him, from what I've seen in the first 3 snippets of him, he's top 8. He's probably top 6. He could even be top 4 midfielder. He's he's in the modern type now.
Here he is. He's back.
He's back.
I'm back. All you Victorians coming over and stealing my internet over here. Geez, 30,000 of you. It's not going too well. Well, we obviously finished the Will Setterfield conversation, but a question going back a little bit popped up. I didn't see it. A couple of questions here about Liam Baker. Hipsters man, if you listen to the Lair, Liam Baker. Tigers fan, Dan Batten. Some big KFC SuperCoach scores for him. Is he legitimate, do we think, as a long-term prospect?
I mean, I thought he might have been legitimate last year when he had, those 5 or 6 scores of where he averaged 5 or 6 weeks where he averaged about 105, 110 points there at a stage when he was playing in the midfield. But he really is just Richmond's Mr. Fix-It. They're going to throw him wherever they need him, whether that's in the midfield, whether that's in defence, or even up forward at times where he's had an impact. So I just don't know. Like, he's a great player to watch, and he's one of my favourites, to cheer on every weekend for the Tigers, but I don't think he's really a super coach pick. I mean, he's fairly cheap at the moment, but yeah, I just think that his role is really inconsistent and he will frustrate you at times. And yeah, he might score a 130 or a 140 here and there, but I thought he was really good on the weekend and he only punched out an 80. So yeah, I think he is one who probably isn't for super coach and isn't. It might be a sort of a burst pick where you might pick him and he goes well for 3 weeks, but probably not, a long-term prospect, Mitch, as you were saying.
Yeah, I probably agree with that assessment. Back to the money side of things with Will Setterfield we spoke about. What about Jacob Hopper, Dan Magala? In most KFC SuperCoach teams, those that didn't jump off after that injury, are we holding him? What can we expect from him from here? Because in my situation, again, trading him out would get me to a Tom Stewart potentially as well in a combination with the Will Setterfield. So obviously a definite upgrade, but it was very good. I was at Adelaide Oval when he played the Crows a couple of weeks ago. He was very good that day when he hurt himself as well. What are you expecting him from here? Are you happy with people jumping off him as well, or he just hasn't done enough?
Yeah, I don't know. I think once you get to diminishing returns in terms of price, you probably consider jumping off because none of us foresee him being a top 8 midfielder. None of us want to have him in our midfield at the pointy end of the season. So, again, horses for courses. I actually don't mind the notion that you're jumping off perhaps to get to a Stewart or a Dawson or both of them at the same time using a boost. That's what the boosts are for, aggressive moves to get premiums into your side. He's not premium. He's middle of the road. He's a mid-pricer who has some upside still left in him. I do like the notion, like he was on 57 or 58 at half time on the weekend. So I thought he was on track for a nice score. It's just that when the wet came or the Bont show turned on, he sort of didn't have much influence thereafter. So I feel like Hopper is, for me, I'm just going to just continue to toil with him. I think him and Taranto, like, they've been regarded, they're getting like lambasted across the television shows about their contested ball winning ability and their centre clearance work. So I think those blokes will get a rocket up their proverbials and they'll have to probably pick their games up because they're on big bucks and they're on 7-year deals. The 7-year sitch, they call it, or something, or stitch or something like that. Kane Corns is calling it. So they have to really pull it out. So for me, I like what Phantom's doing. If I was in your circumstance, also with the unlucky circumstances you've been presented with throughout the year, I probably would make moves like that. I would prefer to have Primos in my side as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to make hard decisions and it takes a little bit of courage in those decisions like this. I can't see you getting burnt by the likes of Hopper or Setterfield. I can't see them burning you. I can see them running out of puff, both of them, because they're not seasoned veterans, 22 gamers. They're not up to that. So, like, you got to take that risk into play. Is Hopper going to burn you an average 110 for the next 6 weeks? 1% chance of that happening. I think you can go ahead and make an aggressive move knowing you're not going to get burnt. That's my view.
Yep, no, I like that. I'll take that. I reckon I will do it. But one thing we are waiting on in KFC SuperCoach is what happens to young Hawk Will Day, who was very good again on Easter Monday against the Cats, but obviously was handed a 2-match ban for a dangerous tackle. The Hawks are appealing the decision some point this afternoon, I think, about 3 o'clock, I believe. So it's cutting it fine. We're talking about a 7 o'clock start local time over here in the Crows and Blues game. What do you think? If the ban gets upheld and he misses 2, do we trade? Are people out there, do you trade him? And if it comes down to 1, do you trade him? People are going to get antsy, going to feel the pressure to be aggressive. What do we think? Dan Batten, would you trade if you had him and he was out for 2 weeks?
I mean, I had Wits last week, and I guess it's harder to cover the ruck line, but I traded even though it was probably going to be a week, but it was sort of in the moment. Like I was already probably 100 points down on most coaches, and if I hadn't traded in Brody Grundy, I would have had a big rankings fall. So I think it will depend from coach to coach, but I think if it's 1 week, you can probably afford to hold because there should be some cover there. You might have a Lockie Cowan, see how he goes on the Thursday night. If he scores a 50-60, you probably just lock that in and cop the loss of 50 points or so, and hold him because I mean his upside is massive, and I'm sort of hoping he gets downgraded maybe just 1 week or so, just so I can potentially get him the next week because I mean he's got a break even of 14, getting stacks of midfield time. Looked really good in that Cats loss. Even in the third quarter, they threw him down into defence and he was taking took a kick in off James Sicily. So, yeah, I think it's probably a hold, especially if it's a week. But if it's 2, but yeah, it also depends if you've just traded him in as well. There would have been quite a few traded him in last week, and if you're chopping and changing too much, he's a guy who could come back to bite you afterwards. So I reckon maybe if you started him, you could probably be justified to trade him out if it's only a week. But, if you've just traded him in the week before, you probably just got to hold firm.
Yeah, interesting one. I guess you could probably put the E on Lockie Cowan or something if you've got him in tonight's game, see how he goes and take that potential score for a week because he's made 90K or so far. So an interesting one. I'll be looking at him as well once he does come back. But I reckon it's time to look at a few captain options. It is, as we know, it is Friday night footy thanks to our friends at KFC. As I mentioned here, every week, every night is Friday night in the Phantoms lair. But this is a big Friday night double header. Gold Coast and Freo Nord Oval into Richmond and Sydney at Adelaide Oval. And of course, it's Friday night. The footy is on and your KFC Friday night feast is on its way. Score free delivery on your Friday night footy feast every Friday when ordering through the KFC app or kfc.com.au. It's game on. It's certainly game on in KFC SuperCoach. What are we thinking captain options? Anything take your fancy on Friday night? Richmond, Sydney, Gold Coast, Freo, or are you going to go with something tonight on Thursday? Dan Bagala.
It's funny, like I've actually went through my stats on Saturday when Bob put up the 122 and I accepted it as my VC. I've worked out I'm averaging 131.5 with my captains, and 3 of them have been Clary. So 113, 135, 156, and then the 122. So I'm hoping to keep up that momentum. And I think it's just gonna have to go to Clary VC. You've got to give him. He loves Adelaide Oval. I know setters will probably come to him, or someone with a bit of defensive mindset might play on him, but we know what he's capable at that oval. He loves hitting double centuries there. So I'm going to give him a chance. Small expanses of the Adelaide Oval, best runner in the comp, best player in the comp, in my opinion. He gets the keys for the VC. And then it comes down to, do I think that Ken Hinkley's going to be tough on the bond? Yes. Do I think that Ross Lyon's going to employ someone? Nick Dacos? Yes. It's a bit worrisome after Clary. So I am nervous, but I don't have Smokey as it yet. And I probably wouldn't do Smokey tonight. There where I'm going. I'm going to go Clary VC and to make a decision thereafter. But I think I'm going to back Clary. It'll be done again. I think he'll lock it in. He's in that Richard vein of form.
Yep, you can see the latest KFC SuperCoach Plus article as well. Dan Batten put together some notes on Clary Oliver's number at LRO. Some huge numbers there. Well, I am going Dawson. I think he can do it in both areas of the ground. If he gets harder in the midfield, he can push back. So he's VC for me. Tim English, I reckon, will be my captain on the Saturday night. And Friday night footy, just on that. I need Hayden Young to fire up at Nordo, where he'll be fried. He'll be fried out of my KFC SuperCoach team. If he doesn't deliver, I'm convinced he's playing hurt or protecting something. So I've got to hold him. I'm going to upgrade around him. If you've got him out there, that's what I'm going to do. Dan Batten, B, C, and C for you.
Tim Mitchell's got into your head, I think, fans. It sound exactly like him, what he was sending into the group chat on Saturday. But
what isn't he sending into the group chat?
Or into the ether, into the Twitter sphere. But no, I think for me, I think Dan McGay hit the nail on the head. It's going to be Clayton Oliver, whether it's C or VC. What I'm sort of agonising over is whether a VC or a Laird tonight. I mean, I got his 150 a couple of weeks ago, but, you know, he has been tagged and, you know, they might go and stop him again. But, yeah, surely they go to Jordan Dawson. They need to stop him. He was just absolutely dominant last week. But at the same time, can Ed Kerno go with a guy like Jordan Dawson? Who knows? So it's probably going to be either VC, Laird, C, Oliver. I think Grundy, someone mentioned earlier, is Grundy a captain option? He certainly is. He's averaging 135 in his last 7 or 8 games against the Bombers. Obviously, always used to tear them up on Anzac Day for the Pies. So I think he's definitely an option as well. But, yeah, probably, you know, VC led into C Oliver or VC Oliver into captaincy. My trade-in of Nick Dacos against the Saints, which could definitely blow up in my face. I reckon if I do captain him, Ross will probably tag him. So maybe I won't tempt fate.
Yeah, we saw Marcus Windhager, who we thought might be the tag a little bit. Didn't really do much defensive work last week. So fingers crossed I'm bringing him as well. I think there's some numbers you mentioned in that column too, Dan, of how good he was over here in the wet last year. Nick Dacos, I was here. I was there on that day as well. So he's very impressive. I'll be bringing him. But Dawson into English for me. That wraps up, I think, a big gather-round edition of KFC SuperCoach Live TV. Dan and Dan, thanks for taking part in a big week. Thanks for all the listeners out there for being part of the show. Enjoy gather-round. Enjoy the 9 games of footy. And if you're in Adelaide, enjoy what it has to offer and enjoy some KFC. There's plenty of those around. We'll see you next week.